Ask away, man. Ask away. Feel free.
All right, let's start it. Welcome, guys. Today we're going to have a AMA with Front Runner Labs here. Dylan from Front Runner Labs. Hopefully you guys got some questions. I have a bunch of them. Just come up and raise your hand if you have any questions. And we will hand out questions as we go. So yeah, I think we're gonna go for the next something about the next hour here. Just ask you a bunch of questions, Dylan, and anyone else if they want to come on from the team. Yeah, so let's start it. Welcome, guys. Dylan, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. I'm good. Thanks for having me, man. Much appreciated. How are you guys?
Yeah, I'm good. As for the other speakers, I hope you're good as well. I'm gonna speak for you here. They are good.
Appreciate you, Adam. You got it. I'm very good. Thank you for asking, Dylan. Thank you.
Awesome. So let's get into the project because I'm reading on the website and I see an inclusive gamified lifestyle fully existing in the virtual world, built by the community for the community. Do you want to tell us what this means?
Yeah, man. Damn right. You summarized that well, I'm not going to lie. So when we talk about virtual lifestyle, we don't specifically mean, let's say, the Web3 world. That's going to be one element of it. But when we're talking virtual, we're thinking even something as simple as what we're doing now, like Twitter Spaces, you've got Twitch, YouTube, you've got other social media platforms as well. So it's about building a community that has access to all of those. The end goal is to have front runners basically kind of like on a pedestal. So in every virtual world, in every virtual aspect, there's a front runner there leading the way.
All right, awesome. And I'm also curious about the team. We have you with us here today. Is there how big is the team and what's your guys' experience?
So at the moment, there's 6 core members in total. If you're talking ambassadors and advisors to the project, I think we're hitting close to around the 15 to 20 mark. In terms of the core team itself, so I've got a degree in marketing. I basically got a lot of past experience in e-commerce and general retail as well. My main thing right now is basically Discord management, making the memes, see how we're going to basically move forward in terms of marketing from an element. We've got Ray, who's basically pursuing a degree in statistics, and he's been working with huge companies from leading chief operations and director across startups for PR agencies as well. But Shay and Sock is basically the developer of the project. He's working on the coding, the blockchain, the website. So he's very, very, very busy at the moment, safe to say. And then we've got Shay, who's basically the core lead along with Sock, who's worked at a few companies in Web2, some of them like including Google when it comes to like their, I can't remember what it's called. Oh, the word slipped my head. Yeah, she's working basically alongside Google and other companies as well, like just as a speaker. That's probably the best way to describe her role over there.
All right, awesome. And what's your experience within this space? Like, have you guys been trading a lot? And what made you get into especially Solana?
So from like crypto and Web3 aspects, I think I started trading crypto the best part of 12 months ago. I originally got in through ETH and Bitcoin, as I think most people do. When you start looking at, let's say, the altcoins, the one thing that stood out massively was Sol, one purely down to the gas fees as well. And also compared to the alternatives that were available, let's say at the time, it probably has the most foundation and structure to grow, not only as the blockchain and the platform, but also the other utilizing use cases with them as well. So when we was looking at front runners, we didn't necessarily want to go with ETH purely for the fact that, I don't know, ETH, I'm not like saying that it's a bad blockchain, bad platform, no way in shape, form, but when it comes to things like gas fees and whatnot, it feels quite inclusive. When it came to, let's say, buying an ETH NFT project, 9 times out of 10, if it's just mint, you're going to be paying the amount just in gas sometimes for the NFT.
Yeah, totally agree. And let's get in, because we have gotten into the team a little bit. If we want to get into more the project in general, and then we're going to dive in deeper into like your roadmap and the details. But to start off, if I got it right, this is a free mint and a 10,000 supply.
So the numbers you basically see on the website at the moment, when we was originally putting it up, a lot of the information there is basically a placeholder. So the supply won't be 10,000. We're looking into the supply. We're going to have more information about that coming out soon. But to have a 10,000 supply around the bear market at this moment in time, it just doesn't seem feasible. So we're going to look to cut that and reduce it. In terms of free and big mint, we had an issue where the original marketer for the project, the idea was to grow the social media, grow the Discord, and what they decided to do is flood it full of bots. At that moment in time, we didn't know who the community was, whether they were real and whether they were not. So what we said is, alongside the paid mint, we're also going to have a free mint as well. Our Twitter account grew to like 8,000-9,000 within, I think, 7 to 10 days. And then Twitter being Twitter decided to rug us and say, hey, we're suspending your account. So we're in talks with Twitter right now to try to get that back. But they're doing different stories. So we're at the moment using the FRS labs to kind of put out the information that needs to be put out.
All right. I see. But back to the supply enterprise. You're going to have a free mint and a paid mint. Is that, if I got it right?
Yeah, so we're going to have, because one thing we said is when we basically found out that the Twitter was basically full of bots, we said one thing, the core element of the project is community. So to give something back to the community, we said we'll have a free mint element of front runners. What that looks like, we're still working alongside the logistics and whatnot. So we're kind of working two in tandem. We're working on front runners as well as free runners, building up one, building up the other, kind of side by side.
All right. And is the free mint going to be previous to the paid mint?
So that's one thing that we're looking into. So originally what we was going to do is put the free mint and then the paid mint. But as we've been discussing with the team, as we've been discussing with our advisors, the route that we may potentially take is say, hey, there's the pint version, and we could potentially randomly select wallets and say, you guys are getting the airdrop for the free runners, or alternatively, it might be, here's the paid mint a day, 2 days, a week later, here's the free mint for basically who's kind of missed out. But the core focus that we're working on now is front runners, which is the paid mint.
All right. Yeah, that makes sense. Hype, did you have a question?
Yeah, it was just about, so the front runners Twitter page. So is this the new one, the FRS Lab?
No, so this was basically
right.
so this one, what we're running at the moment, that was the original that we first set up. Then when it got flooded, bots and whatnot, what we did was we created another Twitter account that grew. I can't remember how many days it was. It was like 7 to 10 days, and it just literally went one step, and it hit like 8,000-9,000 members pretty quick. And a lot of that was from like shit posting and whatnot. I think on NFT Inspect it went to like 17, which is pretty impressive. But then again, Twitter doing their thing, they decided, hey, we're taking your Twitter account, which is
because I'm just saying that you know the one that you've got in the space right now.
Yeah.
That is 77,007 followers. Yeah, and then the engagement is not reflecting that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one that basically got botted.
Got you. So what's the price of the paid mint?
So that's TBA at the moment, but we're looking to probably announce a lot of information within the next 48 hours. So we're having a few meetings with our advisors, a few of the ambassadors as well, kind of getting their gauge and their opinion, and then kind of seeing what is it that we're going to do moving forward. But one thing I will say is we want to kind of remain kind of like accessible to everyone, hence why we kind of targeted Sol to mint on. So it's not going to be anything astronomical. It's not going to be wallet breaking.
Also, because that was, I had a bunch of questions regarding this because you guys are going to build a metaverse, right? Or a virtual world. And using a free mint to build a metaverse is a bold claim. You know, there can always be a bunch of royalties, but you do not really know what to expect. But that makes sense then if you have the paid mint, right?
Yeah. So that's why we kind of thought working kind of one on the other. Obviously, it's feasible to go paid before free, but at the same time, we still want to give back to the community. So to potentially have free airdrops in the future, that's something we could easily do. In terms of like the metaverse, that's one element that we are looking at, and that's something that we could potentially build. We've used keywords like gamified. We could potentially then build games, and that's something we're kind of working on in the background, but that's just one element of what we're trying to achieve.
Awesome. So for the virtual world, is that going to be, are you guys going to build it like in-house, or is it going to be a second party that helps you with that part?
So that's potentially something we can build ourselves, but that's going to be kind of a long-term ambition, not something short-term. We could even then utilize other metaverses out there if we feel that that's best fitting for the front runners. So we kind of like, at the moment, we're not conquered down to this is what we're going to do. We're going to see how things flow and then whether choose to adopt other metaverses or alternatively build our own. Again, we've got the capabilities of doing it.
All right, cool. So I guess that you kind of answered another question I have, which is how do I classify the project? Is it a metaverse? Because we have a bunch of metaverses, right? We have the suits or desolates, or how do I pronounce it? Portals, and then we have also some lifestyle brand type of projects. So I guess your project is more the brand style then, right?
Yeah, there's also like a lifestyle element to it. So again, one thing I mentioned at the start is when we are talking about the virtual space, it's not necessarily just a metaverse and Web3. It's also things like Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, and things like that. But when it comes time, we could quite easily just utilize other areas. So, for example, let's say the other side, whenever they have events on, the idea is to basically have a gamified approach to how go in and raid as front runners, and to have a front runner at the focal point. That's the goal. That's kind of like the end game, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Hype, feel free.
Yeah, so how big is your team? How many members do you have within the project, and how do you plan to be sustainable in this market?
So core is 6, mentioned 4 with advisors. I think you're hitting around 15 to 20. So the team's pretty big. And not only that, as well, as time goes on, we're only going to look to grow and grow and grow. In terms of being sustainable, the whole depends on what the definition of sustainable is. Is it for price? Is it what we're trying to achieve? Is it?
So how long can you run the project based on the mint funds that you plan to gain? And how do you plan to deal with any hiccups, any setbacks to continue being sustainable as a business?
Yeah, so we're not necessarily reliant heavily on the mint funds in order to build what we need to build. We have got external funding and external backing. The mint funds will be great. Of course, that will only simply get added into what we're trying to basically build, but we're not 100% reliant on the mint funds to basically execute what we want to execute.
I see we have the main account joining us here as well. Welcome. Or is that you, Dylan, on the main account?
One second. Did it finally join? 1 second. I tried going on to the Twitter on my desktop to put my Dylan account on my phone. I think that.
Right.
Yeah, I think that might be Ray. I think he might be AFK at the moment.
All right, perfect. Welcome, Ray. Anyway, Odie, feel free, shoot.
Yeah, just had a question. I had a hard time hearing it a little bit. I'm not sure if it was spoken about. You're like you said, you having the dev Sock. He's a dev that he's creating you guys worked on the metaverse type of thing. Any estimate of time when it will be ready to be going into it?
As in the mint, or are we talking like
no, the metaverse, like to have your characters that you're designing now after mint. How long after mint until you can go into the metaverse per se with the characters?
It really depends on which metaverse we kind of want to make our home. Like I mentioned before, it's not necessarily us that are going to be making it ourselves. If that's the goal and that's kind of what the community wants, that's something we can look at. But utilizing other metaverses at this moment in time makes the most sense. So if in the distant future that's something we can look at, but again, mentioned before, there's so many of them. Why oversaturate a market that doesn't need to be oversaturated? But if the community wants it, then it can be built.
All right. Thank you.
Safeword, did you have a question for Dylan? Safeword, if you're trying to talk, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Now we can hear you. Welcome.
I want to make a little inquiry about the project. In terms of lab, considering the name Frontrunner Lab, are there future plans on other projects? Like after this mint, do you have plans to launch other projects under the Frontrunner Lab, like being an ecosystem?
Yep, 100%. That's basically we kind of why we went for the lab aspect. I think that the whole lab things, I don't know, it's weird. In a Web3 space and an NFT space, it feels like lab is like the founders, like the ecosystem. But yeah, 100%. So as mentioned, we've got front runners. In the future, we will be basically launching other projects. We're kind of in talks already of what that looks like. And we've got like a massive mind map online that we all kind of ping through. But yeah, 100%, there'll be alternative projects as well in the future.
Awesome.
Okay. So what is the benefits of holders now? So we that we are holders of this one, although I am not whitelisted yet, but if I have a chance to get it or buy on the secondary market, we will the Genesis holder or the lab holder have access to the future projects.
Yeah, so depending on in the future what we're kind of talking and what we're basically looking to mint, whether it could be something as simple as an addition to the avatar that you have, holders will gain automatic access to that. So again, the one thing that we wanted to build from the scratch was that community element and kind of like we're in it together. So in the future, whenever there's going to be mints, it's going to be kind of going to the OGs, the ones that are minted, and then after that, if there's any left for public, it goes to public. So holding a front runner will just basically get you early access. Of course, there's going to be a difference in terms of pricing and structure. And yeah, and obviously that's kind of like your gateway into FRS Labs.
Perfect. Hope that answered your questions, Safeword. Thank you for the questions. We have some hands coming in hot here. I love it. I think TK was first.
You said you're looking at metaverses. What ones are you guys looking at being on so far?
So obviously there's quite a lot. So one, it kind of depends on which route the community wants us to take. There's a project that we're kind of looking into and that we're going to reach out to the building a metaverse on Unreal 5. The way they're designing it and the concept and how they kind of want the clan element and bases is kind of what we want to achieve. So that could basically be our home, but of course there's nothing in concrete. We're kind of looking at the different metaverses. What is it that they're supplying? Is it just like, hey, you can have a house here, you can have this here? We kind of want more from it, like the word gamify. That's kind of what we want to go for, like a clan based community. Like if there's a raid happening in a particular metaverse, it's going to there and let's complete that raid, so on and so forth.
Oh, I didn't know if you were talking like Sandbox or Decentraland or something like that. Something that's already a little more established.
Yeah, so there's nothing specific at this moment in time. One, it kind of gauges what which route the community wants us to take, and also what kind of provides us with, let's say, the best home of what we're trying to achieve. So it may be sandbox, it may be Decentraland, but right now there's no 100% concrete.
I think, sorry, hey, Ray, yeah, I've been having a bit of a rag. I was just coming back from the gym and I decided to jump in and say hi. Just to add to what Dylan has said, we do, obviously, a huge part of our, I guess, trajectory will be decided on what the community sort of wants to see. However, I would say, just to be specific and to answer your question, TK, we're looking obviously at partnering with Kiraverse and Keeperverse and obviously Jupyverse, because those are some of the metaverse builders we've seen in the space, who we've been on spaces with, talked to, and just sort of love the idea of what they're trying to build. And we think it's something or somewhere that we could sort of initially begin to, I want to say, lay foundation and start to experiment on what a gamified community could mean for metaverses before we then obviously go into the bigger guys, say Sandbox or Decentraland or perhaps other side, if they've got like a Solana variation, or if we do decide to build something on Ethereum. But yeah, I think just to be very specific, I think our communications/conversations have started with Kiraverse. I know we had a short chat with Florian, I think that's of Jupyverse, and then we lost our account, so we sort of lost that, but we'll pick up on that again just to see how we can collaborate. But obviously over time we then expand on that and begin to build on wider known platforms.
Awesome. Hope that answered your question, TK. Hype, your turn.
I got like a 3-part question. What was the inspiration behind the art? Why did you choose front facing? And what made you decide to make just the head?
I am sort of the shit poster of the team, so I'm just going to take a bit of this one and then I'm going to pass it on to Dylan. The first question is, I think, what's the inspiration behind the art? So I was just in a comment section today with one of our community members talking about the inspiration behind the art, and they mentioned we posted an avatar and we asked the community to give it a name, and somebody named it oh God, I've forgotten. It's a lot of names, but it was a very standout name, and I'm sort of talking about sort of how he got there. And fun fact, I guess one of the inspirations is from a number of movies. We've got Arcane, for those of you who watch Arcane. You've got Blade Runner 2049. For the most part, as every artist would know, the concept of an art often is drawn from, either live experiences or things that you're familiar with or shows that you like. And so for us, it was about building or drawing something that is non-derivative, something that's not necessarily been done before, something that stands out. I think it's part of our entire, I want to say, marketing, where we talk about, the front-end avatar being a standout metaverse member. And so what that meant for us was, how could we create an art that if you saw it, you're like, yeah, that's different. So yeah, that's inspiration, sort of just a combination of shows like Arcane, movies like Blade Runner 49, having that sort of cyberpunk / futurist / I want to use the word gender fluid vibe going to it. I think the next question is, what was it again? Sorry, just if you could repeat.
Why front facing?
Why front facing? Yeah, we've got that one before. I think again, it's the fact that if you've noticed throughout our conversation, I've been using the term avatars. I don't necessarily call it an art, because for us, the whole concept has always been centered around being able to build in metaverses, being part of virtual communities, and so our art style is focused on sort of a model that would be easier to, I want to use the word, integrate into metaverses. So say if you've got a body in a metaverse, right, and you want to have a frontrunner avatar, sort of the head, it would be a lot easier because it's front facing. So the software or the program or the owner of that metaverse has less work to do in terms of trying to finding what kind of characteristics are going to make up the other side of the face and all of that. So sort of front facing was sort of the route we're just going to go, because of how, one, obviously not often done it is. You don't see too often. Everything is sort of facing the right and a few facing the left, but also just because it's more human. It's more like a headshot, if you will, right? And so that makes more sense. I think the third question sort of has to do with why, I think you said, why do we do just the head?
Yeah,
was it?
You explained that with the metaverse thing, didn't you?
Yeah, exactly. Sort of, it's still related to that. Just we went straight.
But Dylan kind of said that it's not a metaverse-based project.
No. Dylan said, just to clarify, we're not building a metaverse. We are going to be in metaverses. We're going to create a presence in metaverses, but we are not building one. So we will be working with existing metaverses and how we can collaborate best.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
The front-facing gang here. Love it. you have these different roles in the Discord, right? The ambassadors, the dreamers. I also read a little about it in the white paper. Raider, memers. What does this mean?
I think just at the start of the conversation, while I was sort of trying to get into my house from the gym, I think I overheard Dylan talk about sort of us trying to build a community, a virtual community, and I've also sort of iterated on us trying to build a presence in the metaverse. So bringing that back into sort of why we've got brigades, I think we look at our community as a society. That's perhaps not cliche, it's quite new, where we want everybody to have a role that they play that are quite specific to ensuring that we achieve whatever this, larger than life goals that we set to achieve. One of those goals, obviously, is being dominant in metaverses, and that could be, all forms of virtual spaces. And another of those goals, obviously, includes just having a community that, if you see us, you know it's us, and we're everywhere. So for us, I guess, the brigades serve as a structure in the society where you've got, I want to use the term working class, you've got you've got the farmers, the doctors, something like that. So like everybody's got a role they play. Every role benefits the other in some way, but in general they often sort of serve a greater good. So that's why we built it that way. It's sort of a structure that allows us to relatively easily just keep the community focus. So if you've got people who love art, who love creating memes, good for you. We're gonna have you guys do that stuff, and the value you bring to the project is measured in sort of that. If you've got somebody who is great at speaking to people, motivating people, being a salesman, good for you. You're gonna join, say, Believers or Raiders. If you're somebody who just loves the art, you can and you perhaps have a YouTube channel or a Twitch channel, or you're a gamer, you can join the creators brigade. So basically, everybody in tandem would be serving a greater sort of I guess mission, and I think how we sort of plan to integrate that in the future into our work would be, say, our community is big enough, and I want to say dominant enough and popular enough that if we're going to get to collaborate with, say, people who a new project that is founded by a member of the foreigner community, we can then say, hey, your raiders, your creators, or your memers, X person is launching a project. We want the world, or let's say the NFT space, to see that project. You go do your thing. So they serve a purpose in that regard, where they basically go into, say, Twitter or say YouTube or say Instagram or wherever that community member is trying to build something on, and they push for that person and they create awareness to that person's project, and basically just ensures that everybody within the community is being successful in some way and nobody's voice is feeling left out.
Yeah, that makes sense. You have like a sub communities within your community, and you can also use that as a way to connect people, right? I see Victoria has her hand up. Feel free.
Yes, hi. I'm just wondering how much of your roadmap and how much effort it's going to be put into the raid side of it. Is that a big thing that the project is prominent in regards to, or is this just a side thing?
That's a very interesting and, I want to say, trick question. It's a yes, but it's also elaborate. I'm going to try to keep it short just for time. So FRS Labs, I think somebody mentioned during one of your questions, I think that was SafeFort, sort of the fact that we've got our handle as FRS Labs, which obviously means it's not just one project, it's probably going to be a series of projects or products. And for us, that's the case, where we do have plans to build products that we are not sort of emphasizing on yet, so we can create a different sort of sentimental value for the art, instead of perhaps saying we're going to build a product and then tie the entire worth of our avatars to that product, right? But in terms of the something that we're focusing our energies on, it would be one, building those products. Those include hyper casual games, but obviously while we're doing that, because I've worked in tech for the past 4 or 5 years, I've led products teams. I know that building a product, especially games, especially things that users have to perhaps use very often or play on, it's going to take a while, say 2-3 months, for us to get like an MVP and then get the actual product sort of running and getting adopted. So in that time, instead of keeping the community quiet, instead of allowing, say, the floor price to drop or something, our plan is to harness the power of this entirely, mostly organic community. People who, to an extent, join the project because they either feel something about the avatar that we've created, or because they perhaps share a vision that we also, I guess, see. So we will be focusing on the rating aspect during that, say, first 1 month, 2 month period where we can begin developing this product. So in that period, basically, we can have our readers go out to raid other communities, basically creating more attention and awareness. And when we do have our products launched, then we can begin having that's sort of the next phase, I guess, of our roadmap, if that makes sense. Victoria?
I guess the heart means you got your question answered. Perfect. Hype.
Just, yeah, Dylan mentioned you had some pre-investors before the mint. So is that come from the team, or is that an outside investor? Can you talk about that at all?
Yeah, I mean, we can't talk about much NDAs and stuff, but we would say, obviously we can mention names, but we do have a number of investors, and these are people who have, in some regard, putting a bit of fund into just the capital for getting us to where we are now. Obviously, most of that investment also comes from the team itself, the founding team, our founders, Shay and Co. But even more so, because we're trying to build products and not just the avatar and say rate, we do have access to investors who can invest in these products when there's perhaps, say, an MVP, right? So we have that pool just because of our experience and our network within the tech ecosystem that we've worked in over the past couple of years. We've got like VCs waiting who are willing to jump in at any minute once we've got sort of that proof of, like, I want to say, concept or an MVP to offer them. So yeah, we've got that.
So my actual question, I'm glad you said that, it's really based on, if you're going to be a community-centered project, if you're taking outside investment, how much of an influence are they going to have on decisions that the community make?
That's that's brilliant. I think that the way we're going to structure it is part of sort of where we are, if we're talking about sort of funds allocation for means and stuff, sometimes that we've sort of tried to address with that is we talked about how we would allocate a certain amount of funds to, say, legal expenses. And what that means is the fees that will be needed to register Frontrunner Labs as a company in a country. So what that also means is we can then separate the entity that is, say, Yoga Labs from BAYC, whilst it's run by the same, I want to say, team. The product side of things, say the games or other projects we kind of talk about now, we then have a more sort of the investors or VCs will have more direct inputs on those and how they go. But when it comes to, say, the NFT part of things, the community for the most part influence the decisions. Obviously, the team and the VCs, depending on whatever role they would play eventually, would have a say. But I think for us, it's just been very centered around how we can ensure that the community has the most power. And again, that sort of brings us back to why we've got a brigade where we can hear from quite literally everyone with their different, I guess, skill sets and ideas and see what works best. And then we try to use that to make the project better. But yeah, just generally in terms of some of my experience with VCs and sort of raising funds, their focus more often than not would focus on the products that they are investing in, and that again could be an hyper casual game and so on and so forth. And that may not and that should not affect the community in terms of what they would want and how we approach that.
Thank you, man. Good answer.
Awesome. So we are touching the 45-minute mark here. If you guys, as speakers, have any more questions, feel free to raise your hands. I have another question though. I have two questions. Let's take this one first. From the white paper, I read three kind of pillars, which was in real life meets, collectibles, and the brand collabs. In real life meets, that's pretty straightforward, right? Brand collabs, I think we'll understand as well. But collectibles, what does this mean?
Okay. I mean, have you seen the art of the avatars? They're pretty dope. And we've had community members who have basically, drawn up the most amazing versions of our avatars. So when we say collectibles, what we're saying basically is we want to create I want to say an avenue to create tangible versions of, say, an avatar. And that could be in form of what do we call these things that Marvel creates, like Lego stuff. That could be in form of those stuff. That could be in form of sort of engraved art into, say, a device or a phone pouch or something. So collectibles for us are still related to merchandise, but they're going to be very, very, very limited. So it's going to be, let's say we're going to have out of a collection of, this is not an actual supply, but say 10,000, we're going to have like, say 10% or even 1% of collective are going to just be like up for grabs for those who do get it. So it's sort of all about creating something that people would hold and they'll feel like it has value to them, if not for any other reason, just for the fact that it's unique and it's, I want to say, one of one, or it's one of 500 only. Like creating a Bentley and saying this is a model that's got just 10 and only 10 people in the world have it, and that's it. We're not making that again. So I guess it's sort of merchandise that is unique to a certain number and to a certain amount of people, if that makes sense. Yeah,
that makes sense. Awesome. Another question: are you guys doxed?
No, we're not. We do have plans to dox, obviously, in the near future, but at the moment, we're not doxed. We're just not doxed at the moment. I feel like our team's conviction has always been, just with our years of experience across a number of industries, we want to focus on building a product or a project that scales without necessarily attaching our, I want to say, official names to it. However, in the near future, that could be in 6 months or a year or before then, in fact, we do plan to dox. Obviously, again, with our investors, we are doxed obviously to them, and perhaps with whatever teams we're doing official partnerships with that require us doxing to, say, sign contracts. But to the general, I want to say, NFT community, we're not doxed yet.
All right. We are big believers in transparency, but you guys coming on here to speak shows that you guys have that in place, at least. Victoria, feel free.
Why are you not doxed? What is your reasoning for bringing a project out without doxing yourselves?
I think that I've been in the space for just over a year, right? And in that sort of period of time, I've been part of a number of communities. Some of them have rugged me. It's quite interesting. But I think for us, it's just we try not to. If you've noticed so far, we try not to follow like a meta. We don't do things because it's what's been done. We do not do, say, right facing because that's what everybody's doing. We're not doing, I don't know, something, say, just the basic stuff because everybody's doing it. We're trying not to. I guess our main reasoning would be just the pressure that's put on project founders when they're doxed is immense. And if you've not founded a project, it may be a bit hard to grasp. Or better say, if you've not led a startup, because it doesn't even have to be NFTs. I have worked with teams in DeFi, raising money and all that, and I've worked as community lead for a number of projects, and just having a face to a product, whilst it can have its benefits, more often than not, because people they know you and they can call your name and they know your face, there is more, what's the word? Emphasis on who you are as opposed to what you're building. And the reality is, more often than not, you can actually have anonymous founders who can build amazing products and they don't have to show their faces. And when they do show their faces, it's going to be by their own will. If we get forced to dox by any means, we will do that. But I just feel like we've spent the last couple of months building a reputation, whilst we're not doxed, building a reputation in the NFT space that shows that we're going to be present and we're going to be there and we'll build it and we're going to build. And we'll continue doing that. But the only real reasoning, I suppose, to why we're not doxed is just that doxing creates an unnecessary amount of distraction to the project team, and we do not want that. So we can focus entirely on, say, building these products and obviously building an amazing community who focuses on the art itself and not necessarily the faces behind the art.
Yes, all right. Yeah, we have some big undoxed teams in this space as well. I guess it's the world of decentralization, right? Sarah, feel free. You get the last question of the day.
Thanks. For what I've heard, you're trying to build, at the end of the day, a brand that is targeted to a end user, or would I say consumer, right? Anybody who has the NFT would be someone who is interested in keeping it, getting the collectibles. It's a consumer, basically, right? among NFT enthusiasts, there's a lot of people that use them to as an investment, right? To make something out of it. Do you have plans for that community, or is it just the end user? What I mean with this, these holders sometimes want either tokens or revenue, something out of it, right? It's not just the consumer part. Do you have something planned for them, or is it just gonna be the content that you're putting out and the brand presence? Thanks.
That makes a lot of sense. I'm not going to name names, but obviously I've been a part of projects who have built quote unquote brands and kind of rocked at the very last minute. So I think our goal is sort of to cater for our community, and we've had a very huge emphasis on building that community organically. I'm not sure if Dylan mentioned this. We've had our fair share of spam attacks and bots and whatnot, and we've tried to mitigate that as transparently as possible. And I think sort of bringing it back to your question, eventually we've got a roadmap, we've got a skeletal roadmap, if you will, that should guide where we're looking to go within the next couple phases of the project, and that entails catering to the general sort of spectrum of our kind of community members. For consumers, yes, we're going to be building, say, products or projects for you. But for those who see this as an investment, I think the general consensus is getting a front runner NFT gives our holders a rare, I want to say, opportunity to be a part of. It's like buying a share of a company. I guess that's the best way to put it. Actually, so if you're somebody who holds a front runner NFT, you're basically in your own way, I suppose, buying a share to FRS Labs, which will then be creating products. And you mentioned revenue. Yes, you know, when you've been in a hyper casual game, means for monetization will abound, and obviously that those could do with ads. I've worked with the Facebook teams in a number of capacities, and that could sort of and familiar with Facebook advertising and all of that, and that could be in terms of ads and stuff. But I think our general revenue generation model and how that influences our holders is if you're holding our token, you basically are pretty much holding a sliver of a share of this company that is going to be FRS Labs, or that is FRS Labs. And by doing that, whatever revenue has been generated, you in tandem directly, mostly, and indirectly, say from funding hackathons or from funding community quest or from basically incentivizing rates and stuff like that, you are going to be benefiting from the general, I guess, company. So yeah, if that answers the question, we will be trying our best to cater to all of our community members. We do not want to take anyone for granted, and something we sort of try to emphasize from the very beginning that the community we're building is people who we feel like we're going to be on a journey with. I guess just to round off that last question, there's sort of a major theme with our entire project where we talked about the fact that our team is made up of six core people, but when we do mint out, whatever our total supply is going to be what the entire team is, and that basically means everybody who holds our token is considered a team member, and by that they have a substantial amount of stake in the project or product that comes from the project, but also an amount of sort of a stake into what kind of decisions we make as far as it's regarding, say, our NFTs and the metaverse that we're integrated in and everything that centers around that. Hopefully that answers it, Peter.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome. So for everyone that has been on our spaces previously, you know, right after we close this, we open our after party where we just spread good vibes and talk freely, which usually extends for a bunch of hours. But before we go, I want to say a huge thank you to you, Ray and Dylan, for coming on. This has been amazing. And the last thing for you before you go, if any one of the people in here, any listeners, are interested in getting involved and do not yet have a whitelist, what do they do? And also, is there anything else you would like to share with the listeners?
If anybody's listening to this and they want a whitelist, feel free to DM me your Discord, because I am the Discord boy. I will issue you a whitelist because we appreciate you guys. But yeah, DM me your Discord and I'll get that sorted.
Oh, I would like to get a whitelist. I mean, I'm yet to be whitelisted.
DM me a Discord, bro. As long as you're in our Discord when I issue your
I'm on Discord.
you're all good. Yeah, DM me your Discord ID I'll go through them now, whitelist people bit by bit.
Dylan, just to clarify, you're telling him to DM you on Twitter or Discord, just for everybody.
Twitter, please.
Awesome, guys. Shoot those DMs. Again, everyone, thank you so much for coming on. If this was interesting, just shoot us a follow. We do this all week, Monday through Friday. Front Runner Labs, did you have anything last you wanted to say before we go?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to say thank you, man, for hosting us. I think you're one of our first third-party AMAs that we've done. I think this is just like the third one or so. And it's been quite a journey so far. So thank you for all the, speakers for being such a support and asking the right questions. And Victoria, I see you. You're getting very ready to grade us, and I love that. So thank you for asking the tricky and hard questions and giving us a lot to think about and how we approach them on our next spaces. So just thanks again, TK, Peter, Matty, Soja. I'm not sure it's that Don't Believe, and Super. Thank you.
Don't believe the hype.
Yeah.
You were saved by the bell too,
Thank
because
you.
I was about to grill you in regards to the budget. So we'll have a next.
I'm trying to DM you.
Well,
I'm trying to send Dylan a DM, but it's not going on Discord.
You gotta follow
Send it on Twitter.
Send it
On
to
Twitter.
Send it.
Okay,
Yeah,
on
send me
Twitter. On
Twitter,
Twitter.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But they actually are going to be figuring out the budget once they figure out their mint price and everything, Victoria. So we'll be able to grill them again if you want.
Let's do it.
Definitely looking forward to it.
All right. Awesome, guys. Thank you, everyone, for coming on. I'm closing this now, and we'll be back in 30 seconds, maybe 35. I don't know, but somewhere in between. Awesome. Thanks, guys. Big love to everyone in here.
Thanks, man. Bye.
Bye.